Welcome to our 2022 National Alzheimer's Summit. When we gathered a year ago, I said hope was finally here and that it was the most exciting year since Us Against Alzheimer's was created in 2010. Well, 2022 has already beaten 2021 and proven to be historic, particularly with the announcement by Eisai and Biogen just 2 weeks ago of the positive results of lecanemab's phase 3 clinical trial. By lowering amyloid in the brain, the results showed lecanemab reduced the progression of Alzheimer's by 27% over the 18-month period of the trial compared to placebo. This is incredibly exciting news that is giving millions of Alzheimer's patients and their loved ones hope that help could soon be on the way. And we don't have time to wait. Like other potential treatments in its class, lecanemab is most effective for people with mild cognitive impairment and the early stages of Alzheimer's. 1,000 people a day slipping from mild to moderate disease every day, however, time for us is of the essence. On January 6th, the FDA will announce whether lecanemab will receive an accelerated approval, a mechanism designed for serious diseases where a drug is reasonably likely to benefit patients. Lecanemab should be approved. If the FDA does find the drug safe and effective and approve it for use by doctors, it will then be up to Medicare to determine whether it will cover this exciting new treatment. Of course, as we all know, Medicare coverage is a challenge. In fact, in April of this year, for the first time in history, Medicare denied coverage for the entire class of Alzheimer's drugs, including this one, even before these results were in. So unless Medicare reconsiders its existing policy, millions of Americans will be left, again, without access to a new medicine, one that would give us more time to spend with our loved ones. We can't let that happen. And as we look at the state of our movement and what's ahead, I have serious concerns about our nation's slow progress toward the federal goal of effectively treating and preventing Alzheimer's disease by 2025. Us Against Alzheimer's played a leading role in creating the 2025 goal, working closely with the White House and Congress to make it official national policy. But unless things change, and change quickly, our nation is going to fail to meet this major milestone. I cannot accept that. I know you would not either. You should not. People are counting on us. Lives depend on us. That's not to say there hasn't been progress over the last decade. Over the last decade, the national goal has led to amazing progress in the understanding of Alzheimer's, in new diagnostic products, and even a federal policy making Alzheimer's prevention through risk reduction a national priority. Indeed, as with our efforts in causing the government to set the 2025 goal, the decision by HHS Secretary Javier Becerra to add prevention as the sixth goal to the National Alzheimer's Project Act was the culmination of work by Us Against Alzheimer's and more than 200 of our partners in a brain health partnership. And even as we work to get a low-cost, widely available drug available to us all, we will be laser focused on promoting risk reduction as an additional major part of our work going forward. As we know, preventing and effectively treating Alzheimer's is rooted in science, making funding increase for research a continued essential priority for us. Fortunately, this has become an area where Republicans and Democrats agree, supported by our nonpartisan advocacy as the Alzheimer's Party, leading to increases for Alzheimer's research that have taken us from $448 million a year in 2010 when we launched to more than $3.7 billion a year today. Research is fueling the continued development of new diagnostics that are more accessible and more affordable to patients, and has led to the greater understanding of brain health across the lifespan, and the critical need for earlier detection, and the importance of making real changes in clinical practice at the primary care of our health systems. We always have to remember that the American people, all of us, are at the heart of all of this. And for too long, the needs of the people of higher risk, women, Latinos, and Black people, have gone unaddressed. not just in clinical trials where people of color are woefully underrepresented, but also in the detection, diagnosis, and treatment of this disease, where our health system has such an historic bias. We must commit ourselves to meeting the needs of the very people who are hit the hardest. And it starts by changing our healthcare system into one that works for every American. And we are striving to build a truly international movement to take on the global Alzheimer's crisis. Other countries have not lived up to their commitments for research funding. And unfortunately, there is still no global movement of governments to take on Alzheimer's, notwithstanding pledges to do so from the G7 in 2013 and the G20 in 2019. Pledges and communiques are nice, but governments are simply not working together or with industry and researchers on how to stop this damn disease. We are seeking to change that head in the sand attitude with an international initiative we incubated here at Us Against Alzheimer's called the Davos Alzheimer's Collaborative, a partnership with the World Economic Forum, the Davos people, and our corporate roundtable, the Global CEO Initiative on Alzheimer's. There will be an estimated 150 million people with Alzheimer's around the world in 2050. But as we know, for every person living with Alzheimer's, 5 others are directly affected, making the potential impact of Alzheimer's felt by almost 1 billion people worldwide in the coming decades. As my friend Ken Dykewald would say, Alzheimer's is the sinkhole of the 21st century. Indeed, Alzheimer's is a true pandemic, one that's slower than COVID, but potentially much bigger. In 2019, the estimated total global societal cost of dementia was 1.3 trillion that year. And these annual costs are expected to surpass 2.8 trillion by 2030 and beyond, as both the number of people living with dementia and care costs increase. That means over the next decade, global costs of this disease will exceed $20 trillion. In the US alone, the estimated cost is $400 billion a year. And in the coming decades, as Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri has articulated, Alzheimer's costs are projected to exceed the cost of the Department of Defense. Today, I would offer 6 steps that I think are critical to enable us to fulfill President Biden's pledge to stop Alzheimer's disease. First, Medicare needs to reverse its blanket decision to not cover Alzheimer's drugs. It should evaluate each FDA-approved drug on its own merits. To that end, I'm grateful to Representatives Vern Buchanan and Annette Barragan for introducing a bill last week in the House of Representatives that would compel Medicare to do just that. Medicare must stop holding Alzheimer's patients to a different standard than other patients and other diseases and work to get treatments in the hands of people who need them. And Medicare should show to governments around the world how important it is that health systems cover the cost of these innovative treatments globally. Second, FDA and other global regulators need to continue to employ accelerated approval authority and approve Alzheimer's drugs that are reasonably likely to provide a clinical benefit to patients. Third, clinical trials must do a better job of ensuring participants reflect the Alzheimer's population with or at risk of this disease. That means more women, more Blacks, more Latinos, more low-income and rural populations. Fourth, healthcare providers need to adapt their clinical practices in primary care settings to screen for brain diseases early in the disease course, to pay attention to brain health, to promote behavior changes that reduce the risk of dementia, and to address the related conditions that increase the risk of Alzheimer's, such as diabetes, hypertension, sleep disorders, and depression. Fifth, governments, businesses, scientists, and advocates around the world must collaborate more purposefully and with clearer accountability for action. Finally, I believe our nation needs to lead the world in a renewed commitment to prevent Alzheimer's, one that delivers on President Biden's moonshot pledge for a cure. With focus and determination, I believe we could not only get disease-modifying drugs to patients by the 2025 goal, but begin a path to lifelong brain health. I want to call today for a stretch goal, as we would say in business. I want to see an Alzheimer's vaccine available by the end of this decade. That's the promise behind the new Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, better known in Washington as ARPA-H, to lead a new competition for breakthrough diagnostics, new treatments, and a vaccine to stop Alzheimer's and other chronic diseases, making our health span and our brain span equal to our lifespan. Let's drive ARPA-H to use what we learned during COVID when the government created Operation Warp Speed to develop COVID vaccines at an accelerated rate and apply that to this disease. Meeting the 2025 national goal or the stretch goal of a vaccine in this decade will not be easy. Business, academia, and government need a new sense of urgency, a new spirit of collaboration, and a renewed commitment to accelerate innovation and action. No one company, no one researcher, no one government can defeat this disease alone. Beating Alzheimer's has to be a team sport. Healthcare providers need to make a checkup from the neck up as routine as a checkup from the neck down. We advocates need to get even louder and more effective, so 6 million families living with this disease today are heard. And policymakers need to make sure promising drugs get to patients, their constituents, including those most at risk. Time and again, we've seen the results when people from so many different areas and sectors and organizations come together on a common cause. It's the power of us, and we need to do it again. Us Against Alzheimer's is ready to go, ready to lead, and I hope you all would join with us in this fight. Thank you. Us Against Alzheimer's offers its deepest gratitude to the sponsors of our National Alzheimer's Summit. Their generous support helps make this important event possible. A special thank you to our 2022 Premier Level Summit sponsors, Biogen, Eisai, and Lilly, and to our Platinum Level sponsors, the Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation, Edward Jones, and Genentech. In addition, we appreciate our many gold and silver sponsors. Thank you all for your support of this event, for joining us against Alzheimer's in the fight to end this disease. Welcome again to our summit.